In this episode, I talk with the CEO and founder of an organization that has been applying AI to help them develop products. Will it help you develop your products faster? Come and see.
Welcome to ClickAI Radio, where you'll learn the secrets to transforming your small to medium business. Grant has been helping businesses transform using technology for over 30 years. Advanced technologies like artificial intelligence have been available only to large companies and advanced technical teams. Grant will discuss how you can use to leverage AI and other technologies to grow your small to medium business. As a gift, Grant is offering his ebook, AI for Sales Growth, at clickairadio.com. Now, here's your host and biz tech geek, Grant Larson.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of ClickAI Radio. So today I have this opportunity to speak with one of those brains out there in the market that's being disruptive, right? They're making changes in the industry in terms of not only the problems they're solving, but it's the way in which they're solving the problems using AI. Very fascinating. Anyway, everyone, please welcome Paul Ortchanian here to the show.
Hi, nice of you to have me here on the show.
Absolutely, it's very good to have you here today. When I was first introduced to you, and I started to review your material, what it is that your organization has put together, I was fascinated with the approach because I have a product development background and in the software world. AI was late comer to that, right? Meaning over generations. When I saw the approach that you're taking to that, I'm interested to dig more into that. But before we do that big reveal, could you maybe step back and talk about the beginning of your journey? What got you on this route and this map, both in terms of product development and technology and AI itself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started out as an engineer, headed down to San Francisco in the early 2000s, and I was more of a thinker than an actual engineer. I'd just be the type of guy who would figure things out by themselves. But if you were to ask me to really do things that the real things engineers do, creativity was there, but not the solutioning. So, being in San Francisco is a humbling experience. I guess Silicon Valley, you get to see some really, really good engineers. So I had to make a shift in my career. And since I had a passion for user experience, the business aspect, product management was a great fit. A function I didn't really understand, and I got to learn and respect and did that for about 10 years. In the mid-2010s, I basically moved back to Montreal for family reasons and cost of living, of course, in San Francisco. And I started this company called Bain Public, which in French stands for public bath. And the idea is that what I realized in Canada was that, people here in accelerators, incubators, and startups just didn't understand what product management was. They didn't really understand what they do and how they do it. And I saw a lot of organizations being led by the marketing teams or the sales team and being very service oriented and not really product led. So Bain Public basically stands for public bath, which means every quarter you want to basically apply some hygiene to your roadmap. You have a galaxy of ideas. Why not go out there and just, take the good ones and remove the old ones and get rid of the dirt? We started with that premise, and we said, well, what does a product manager do on a quarterly basis? Because a lot of the material you'll read out there really talks about, what product management should do in terms of personas and understanding the customers, the data, and this and that. But nobody really tells you in which order you should do it. Right. That was my initial struggle as a product manager. You try to do it all in the same day, and then you realize that there's not enough time. So the question is, like, in a 1 quarter, 12-week cycle, as my first 3 weeks should be about understanding the market shifts, the industry, the competitors, and the users, and then maybe the next 3 weeks working with leadership on making sure that there is no pivots in the organization, or there are some major strategic changes, and then going into analyzing this parking lot of ideas and figuring out which ones are short term and making business cases in order to present them for for the company to make a decision on what to do next on the roadmap. So there is a process, and we just call that process SOAP, which goes in line with our public bath theme. So the idea was like, let's give product managers SOAP to basically wash their roadmap on a quarterly basis, and that's what Bain Public does. And we work with over 40 organizations today so far on really implementing this product-led process within their organizations. We work with their leaders on identifying a product manager within the organization and making sure that marketing support, sales, the CFO, CEO really understand how to engage with them, what to expect from them, and how a product manager can add value to an organization, and so that it just doesn't become this race towards as many features as you can pump out, right?
Oh boy, yeah, which is a constant problem. The other thing that I've noticed, and I'm wondering if, and I'm sure that your SOAP methodology addresses this, it's the problem of shifting an organization in terms of their funding model, right? They'll come from sort of these project-centric or service-centric funding styles, and then you've got to help them through that shift to a different funding model around products. Do you guys address that as well?
Yeah, we address that a lot. One of the things we always tell them is, if you are a professional services firm, and I have no issues basically calling them that. And I asked them, like, do you quantify staff utilization in percentages? Like 70% of our engineers are being billed, right? Do we basically look at the sales team? How many new deals do they have in terms of pipeline? Are we looking at on-time delivery across those SOWs that the sales team closed? And what is our technical staff attrition? That usually tends to be identifiers of you being a service firm. And we often ask them, well, let's make this shift. Why don't we identify one little initiative that you have that you want to productize? Because all these service firms really, all they want is recurring revenue. They service is tough, right? Like, you constantly have to bring in new clients. So this recurring revenue, the path to recurring revenue is, being able to say, okay, I'm going to take 2 engineers, 1 salesperson, 1 marketing person, 1 support person, a product manager, and those guys collectively will cost me $1 million a year, and I'm going to expect them to basically bring me $3 million of recurring revenue. That means that they're no longer going to be evaluated on staff utilization. They're no longer going to be evaluated on the number of deals they're bringing in, and they're really going to be evaluated on how are they releasing features. Are they creating value through those features? Are we increasing the number of paid customers? And are we basically, staying abreast in terms of competitors and market and industry changes? And so that's a complete paradigm shift. And that transition takes a while. But the first seed is really being able to say, can you create an entity within your organization where the CFO accepts that those engineers are dedicated and no longer being reviewed in terms of their utilization rate, in terms of their, how much they're billing to customers. Once they do that shift, then the rest is pretty easy to do.
Yeah, so it's become easy. So the thing too I've seen and experienced with product and product development is the relationship of innovation to product development. And so I see some groups will take innovation and they'll move that as some separate activity or function in the organization, whereas others will have that innate within the product team itself. What have you found effective, and does SOAP address that?
Yeah, I mean, we always ask them the question of how are you going to defend yourself against the competition? What the VCs like to call their moat, right? And that defensibility could be innovation. It could also be your global footprint, or it could be how you operationalize your supply chain and make things really, really cheap, right? Every company can have a different strategy, and we really ask them from the get-go. We call this playing the strategy wheel, where we give them like 8 potential ways a company can, find strategies to defend themselves. And the first one is first to market. And the question is, it's not about you being first to market today, but do you want to outpace your closest rivals on a regular basis? And if so, you need an R&D team, an innovation team, who is basically going to be pumping out commercializable features or R&D work. And then we always give them the 2 examples. The example of Dolby being completely analog in the 70s, but really banking on their R&D team to bring him to the digital age, and from the digital age to set-top boxes to Hollywood, and now into Netflix compression, right? So they've basically put their R&D team as the leader to basically keep them a step ahead of their competition. But on the other hand, we also talk about Tesla, where Tesla is basically doing the same thing, but they're not doing it for intellectual property like Dolby. They're not suing anybody. They're actually open sourcing it. But there's a reason behind it, where that open sourcing allows them to basically create what we call the Betamax VHS issue, which is making sure that there's compatibility across car manufacturers for Tesla parts and overproduction of parts that are Tesla, just to increase their supply chain, right? So we asked them, do you want to be that company? If you don't want to be that company, then there's other ways for you to basically create defensibilities. You could be regulatory compliant if your industry requires it. You can go global, you can go cross-industry. You could basically create customer lock-ins, how SAP and Salesforce love to basically just integrate workflows with like boots on the ground, professional services certified teams, right? Or you can basically review your process and make sure, just like Amazon, that you're creating robots to do human work in order to just basically do it cheaper than anybody else. So there's ways of doing it. And I would say that if you were in a AI space, especially, it's important to make sure that, are you really trying to innovate through AI? Because you can get a lot of researchers doing a lot of things, but that's not really going to help you create commercializable ideas. So from the get-go, the leadership team needs to, at least make a hedge of bet on, expansion, innovation, or creating efficiencies, and just, decide and let the product management team know in which direction they're planning on going for the next 6 years at least.
I loved your last comment there, Paul, about getting the leadership team involved. It seems that many times in organizations, this challenge of making the change sticky, right? Making it last, making it resonate, where people truly change their operating model, right? They're going to start operating in a different way. Their roles and responsibilities change. What it is, that the order in which things get done, all of those change when they start moving both into this AI space. But product driven just by itself, even without AI, has its own set of challenges. So here's the question I have for you. As you move companies through this transformation, that's part of your business, right? You are transforming the way companies operate and bringing about better outcomes. How do you make those changes sticky? Because this is a cultural change. What is it you guys have found that's effective?
Well, it goes back to our name, public bath and soap, right? Because the idea is like you take a bath on a regular basis. Hygiene is something you do regularly, right? Mm-hmm. So we ask these organizations, if we give you a process where you know exactly what the product management team is going to do with you, with the leadership team, and in order to prioritize your next upcoming features, then can you do this in a cyclical way? Every quarter, you need the product manager to do the exact same process of revisiting the competitors, the industry, the market, as well as like the problems that you have with your customers, bringing it back to the organization, asking if the strategy is still about expansion, innovation, efficiencies, identifying new ideas, clearing up the parking lot of bad ideas, et cetera, and eventually making the business case of the new features in order for them to make a commitment. So if you do this in a cyclical way, then the product role becomes the role of what I like to call the CRO, which is the chief repeating officer. Because all the product manager is doing is just repeating that strategy and questioning the CEO, are we still on? Are we pivoting? Or if we pivot, what does that mean? And if you're doing it on a 3-month basis, what that allows your company to do is to make sure that the marketing and sales and support team are going along with what the engineering team is going to be delivering. So this is what I usually see in most product organization, where a decision has been made that the engineers are going to be building a particular feature. The sales and marketing team just waits for the engineers to be code complete. And once the code complete's done, they're like, okay, now we're going to promote it. But the question is that it's too late, right? You really, so I always show talk about Apple, how Apple would basically go out in front of millions of people and just say, here's a new iPhone 13, and we came up with a new version of Safari, and we're updating our iOS, and we're doing 40 other changes. And the next day you walk inside an Apple store and, everything has changed. The marketing's changed. The guys at the doing the conferences and the lectures and the training are all talking about the new Safari, the new iPhone. And you ask yourself, how did Apple know to organize the marketing support and sales team in such a way that the day that the announcement has been done, everything is changed. So that means that it's not just the engineering team's responsibility to get the code complete. It is a collective responsibility where marketing, support, and sales are also preparing for the upcoming releases. And the only way you can get that type of alignment is if every 3 months, these parties, technology, product, CEO, CFO, sales, marketing, and support can get together and make a clear decision on what they're going to do and be honest enough of what they're not going to do, and then work collectively together on making sure that those are being delivered and prepared in terms of the size of the promotion that we're going to do, and how are we going to outreach, how's the sales collateral going to change, how is the support team going to support these upcoming features, and so everybody has work to do in that 3 months time frame. So and that if we can get to that cyclical element, I think most companies can create momentum. And once that momentum is generating small increments of value to the customers, then you start building what I like to call reputational capital with the clients, with the customers, with the prospects. And eventually anything you release, they love. And everything you release adds value. And eventually everybody loves everything you're doing as an organization. You become that, big unicorn that people want to be.
Yeah. So the net of that is, I believe what you said is you operationalize it. In other words, it gets integrated into everyone's role and responsibility. It's this enterprise level cross-function alignment that gets on a cadence. And the cadence is, in your case, you'd mentioned quarterly. Quarterly sounds like that's been a real gem for you. I've seen some organizations do that in shorter time frames and some much longer. It sounds like quarterly's been a good nugget that you found there.
Yeah, quarterly works because markets are set in a quarter way. They operate in that way. You want results on a quarterly basis in terms of sales, in terms of engagement, etc. But what's important is that a lot of engineering teams like to work agile or Kanban, and in a quarter, in a 12-week time frame, you could fit, I'd say, let's see, your sprints are 3 weeks. You could fit four 3-week sprints, or you could fit 6 2-week sprints. But I feel that if you were to shorten it, then the marketing team and sales team and support team might not have enough time to prepare themselves for code complete. The engineers might be able to deliver, but then the product manager gets overwhelmed because doing an industry research, competitor research, etc., every, say, month and a half or 2 months just becomes overwhelming for them, because things don't change enough in 2 months for them to be able to say, oh, look, this competitor just came up with that. And now we need, so I think 3 months is enough time for the world to change, for, a country to go to war, for COVID to come over and just destroy everything. So pivot decisions are usually pretty good to do on a quarterly basis.
Yeah, that's good. That's I think COVID followed that rule, right? Hey, I have a question for you around AI. So how are you leveraging AI in the midst of all this? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we've noticed is a lot of organizations who have products, SaaS products, or any type of product, IoT products, etc., they're generating data. I mean, it comes hand in hand with software development. So all that data is going into these databases, and nobody knows what to do with them. And eventually, they start creating business intelligence, and from business intelligence, AI initiatives just come about. It's just very normal to say, with all this data, if we were to train a machine learning module, we would be able to recommend the best flight price or the best time for somebody to buy a flight because we have enough data to do it. So we're not working with AI first organizations who are, our entire product is going to be around AI. We're just trying to work with organizations that have enough data to warrant 1, 2, 3, or 4 AI initiatives and an ongoing investment into those. So the best example I like to talk about is the Google Gmail suggestive replies, right? Which adds enough value to the user, needs AI in the back, and a lot of data. But ultimately, it's not that Gmail is an AI product. It simply has AI features in it. And when organizations start identifying AI or machine learning predictive elements to their product, then we go from engineering being a deterministic function, which is if we were to deliver this feature, then customers will be able to do that, to a probabilistic function where let's experiment and see what the data can give us, and if this algorithm ends up really nailing it, we'll achieve this result. But if it doesn't, then do we release it? Do we not release it? And then it gets a little bit hairy because product managers just lose themselves into it. Oftentimes they'll release a feature and the sales team would just ask them to pull it out right away because it has, not met the expectations of a customer or two. And ultimately, like, what we ask product managers to do is work with leadership on really identifying a few key elements that are very, very important to just baseline before you were to begin an AI project. And those are pretty simple. It's really like, are you trying to create to have the machine learning module make a prediction? Are you trying for it to make a prediction plus pass judgment? Or are you trying to make it a prediction, a judgment, and take action, right? Decision automation, which is what self-driving cars do, will see a biker. They will make a prediction that it's a biker, will make a judgment that it's indeed a biker, and will take action to avoid the biker, right? But when you're creating ML projects, you can easily say, we're just going to keep it to prediction, right? Like, this machine's going to predict something, and then a human will make judgment, and a human will take action. There's nothing wrong in doing that. So just setting the expectations from the get-go in terms of, are we basically going to predict, judge, or take action? And that's number one. And then the next question is, whatever that we decide, if it's just prediction, is that worth guessing? And who does that guess today? If it's a human, well, how accurate is that human? Let's quantify it so this way we can compare it against what this machine's going to do. What is the value the company gets out of that guess being the right guess? And what's the cost of getting it wrong? And so oftentimes we forget that humans do get it wrong too. And if humans get it wrong, there are huge consequences to organizations that we'll overlook. But as soon as machine learning does the same thing, we're ready to just cancel hundreds of thousands of dollars of investment.
Yeah,
right?
That's right. Yeah, we toss it out. So a use case, I'm assuming, would be you would leverage AI to, say, enhance a product manager's abilities to either predict outcomes of some product development activities or releases or things like that. Would that be a kind of use case where you'd look to apply AI?
Well, not a product manager. So I would say the product manager would look at its software. Let's take the software of a website that tries to predict if people qualify for a mortgage loan, for example, right? So you have enough data at that point to be able to automate what the underwriting process that humans do of validating whether or not somebody is eligible for a loan. Well, we could take all that data and just make a prediction of that person's fit for the particular loan. Now, if we were to say, well, it's just going to be the prediction, but we're not going to give this person the loan, we're still going to ask a human being to pass judgment that prediction was the correct one and then take action to give or not give them a loan. So let's say that's the machine learning module we're going to add to our feature. Now, the question is, how this underwriting department in the past 10 years, how often did they really screw up that and issued loans to people that couldn't pay their loan, right? And realize it's 40%. We're like, well, 40%, could this machine learning be as accurate as them plus one, right? And then we end up realizing that, this whatever we delivered is 33% accurate and not 40% plus one accurate. Now, is it still worth putting out there? We spent $100,000 into it. And then, then it's up to the product manager to basically be able to put this thing in place and say, well, look, underwriting is a 9-to-5 job currently in our business, and it costs us this much money. On the other hand, if this machine learning is 33% accurate, but it's actually doing it 24/7, 365 days a year, and it's only going to improve from 33 to 40. And if it goes above 40, then the savings for our organization are this much money. So it is really the product manager's job to be able to not only talk about the business KPIs, but also what the AI machine learning KPIs we need to achieve and what the impact of that would be if we get it right. And I think that the biggest issue we have as product managers in the AI space is if we were to go and do this everything that we need to create AI, like the data ops, selecting the data, sourcing it, synthesizing it, cleaning it, etc. The model ops, which comes down to multiple algorithms, training those algorithms, evaluating, tuning them, and then the operationalization. If you do all these steps, and you get to 20% accuracy, and your target is 87% accuracy, right? What do you do with it? Because you had to do all this work anyways. It costs you tons of money and time. And so how do we get the leadership team to say, this AI initiative has enough value for us that we're willing to live with the consequences of it getting it wrong, or we're willing to actually have it supported by a human for the next 6 months to a year until it basically trains itself and gets better. So it's how do you get this openness from the leadership team? Because what I've often find delivering AI projects is every time you deliver an AI project and it's misunderstood in terms of its output, and everybody thinks it has to be 100% accurate, the second it goes wrong, it's the political drama that you have to go through in order to keep it alive it's just overwhelming, right? So might as well set those expectations up front and tool the product managers with the right arguments to make sure that the expectations are set correctly.
Have you ever worked with or heard of the company called digital.ai? Are you familiar with them? Digital.ai, maybe not. But anyway, they have been working in a similar space as you, but not so much at the product management level. What they're doing though is they're looking to apply AI to the whole delivery function. So you see the product manager is above this and is making sort of these KPIs and other estimate activities and the planning out. But then there are all these functions under there that, of course, do the delivery of the product. So they're working on the tooling spectrum. In fact, I think they acquired, it was 5 different companies like in the last 9 months that they're integrating these and then building this AI seam or layer across all that data across delivery with that purpose and intent to do that predictive, not only backwards analysis activities around AI, but predictive, which is what's the probabilities I might run into the problem or some problem with this particular release, right, of this product, right, they're about to send out. That might be an interesting group for you to get connected with.
Yeah, it's funny because there's a local company here in Montreal that does the same thing. It's really about like data scientists are really expensive and they're really hard to find and there's a shortage of them. So a lot of organizations are trying to find like a self-serve AI solution where you can build your AI using their AI, but ultimately what they're doing is taking your data and delivering 1, 2, 3, or 10 versions of a machine learning module, and it's up to you to basically judge which one's going to work the best for you. But they actually operationalize it, put it out there for you, and really automate the whole thing. So this way you're not dependent on humans. I love that. I really love that. I think any organization should have one of those. But that still means that there's a dependency from the product manager to know its data like end to end, be able to clean it, be able to tag it, and then feed it to these machines, right? And I think that part is also misunderstood because do we have enough data? Is there bias in the data? And all that needs to be understood and figured out because you could say like, hey, we put it through this big machine and we ended up with a 20% accuracy on the best ML that it outputted. Well, that's still not good enough because we're aiming for 87. And what does it mean? What do we need to do to basically get it to 87? We're gonna have to review the data, bring in some third-party data, and that costs a lot as well.
Do you think auto ML solutions play a role here, like Able? I don't know if you're familiar with that platform. The goal is to try to reduce the amount of dependency that's needed on the data science scientists themselves, right? But it still doesn't remove all of the data cleansing part, but it does help take care of some of the certainly the low level data science requirements. You think that's a viable solution in this area?
I think it is. I mean, it's we went from rule-based AI where data scientists had to do good old-fashioned AI, which was feature engineering, right? Putting the rules themselves, to machine learning AI where we had to train the data, but we're so dependent on these data scientists. And now we're getting to the V3 where we have these tools and there's a data dependency, but they also don't have such a high dependency on data scientists and figuring out algorithms and etc. We could just basically have these prepackaged algorithms that could basically output us any types of solutions. What I tend to like, I've seen this a lot in a lot of companies. There's some companies that are very, very industry specific, right? So they're providing AI for e-commerce to be able to provide better search with predictive elements based on the person's browsing history. I'm not sure about the ones that are providing every ML imaginable. So you could use it for supply chain or you could use it for something else. I know it's dependent on data, but again, these algorithms, you can't have all the algorithms for all scenarios. Even if it's supply chain, some person has perishables and is ordering bananas and the other person is ordering I don't know, water coolers, and those don't have the same rules, right?
Yep.
So it's important to just, I think that maybe in the coming years, we'll have a lot of companies that are really going cross industry, just like we're in e-commerce, the other ones are in medtech, the other ones are in et cetera. The tools are the same. I mean, more or less the same. The customers are going to get used to basically having these UIs that give you, you input data in, and then these MLs come out, and then you choose which one, and they give you probability, you can retrain them and all that stuff. And I think that it's just going to get to a point where we're going to have these product managers who are now responsible of kind of training the machine learning module themselves. I don't know if it's going to be the product manager, if it's going to be some other function, but I think it does definitely fit inside the product manager's
Well, I do.
And
I think it's because they still need to have what we would call the domain knowledge. And in this domain of building products, AI, at least in this phase of the life of AI where we are today, for the foreseeable future, I think the product manager needs to be involved with that for sure. So
it comes down to intuition, right? Somebody has to have to build that intuition about what a model is relying on when making a judgment. And I think that, the product manager is the closest one, really. Maybe in bigger organizations, it's the person who's managing analytics and data, but in smaller startup organization, I can definitely see the product manager putting that.
Absolutely. Wow, Paul, I really appreciate you taking the time here today on this. Been fascinating conversation. Any last comments that you want to share?
We have tons of articles that talk about, so we're very open source as an organization. So if you want to learn more about this, we have about 70 articles on our website. Just go to bainpublic.com and just click on articles, and you could just, self-serve and basically improve as a product manager in the AI space.
Excellent. Fascinating. Love the conversation, your insight and the vision where you guys are taking this. I think you're going to continue to disrupt. Everyone, thanks for joining another episode of ClickAI Radio. And until next time, check out bainpublic.com.
Thank you for joining Grant on ClickAI Radio. Don't forget to subscribe and leave feedback. And remember to download your free ebook. Visit clickairadio.com now.